Hey guys, welcome back to Vegetarian's Guide. I am Jada, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make vegan crab cakes. Now, there's so many different ways of making vegan crab cakes, but this recipe is by far the easiest, and it is absolutely so delicious, so you'll love it, and your friends and family are going to love it as well. But before we dive in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to get started, we're going to need 2 cans of heart of palm. Now the brand doesn't really matter. I've used many different brands, so they all work out the same. So just make sure you got 2 cans of it, and then what we're going to do is shred it with a fork and chop those up into pieces and then throw it in the bowl and take it from there. Okay, so now that we have our heart of palm completely chopped up, what we're going to do is essentially start seasoning it. I'm going to take about 4 tablespoons of mayo. I'm using a big spoon, that's why. And you're going to want to be pretty generous with your mayo. You know what, I'm going to add in a little bit more just for a little bit extra flavor. And I'm going to link the instructions and everything down below so that you guys can see it there and follow along at home as well. So I'm going to mix in the mayo. And while I do that, what you're also going to do is take about a half a lemon. You're going to want to get that lemon juice in there. And I'm just using a regular squeezer to squeeze that. If you make enough of these are going to give you like those nice bicep muscles from squeezing. Okay, once you get that in there, go ahead. We're going to use Old Bay. Now this is very important for when you're making the crab cakes because it's going to give it that actual seafood and seawater type taste. So we're going to go ahead and put that Old Bay seasoning. You're going to use about 2 teaspoons of it. Now I'm eyeballing it. You guys already know. I don't really measure anything out. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and just take some cayenne pepper or any pepper that you have on hand and just put that in there too. You're gonna need about 1 teaspoon of it. If you're not a spicy person, if you're not a spice person, then just put a little less than 1 teaspoon. And then also onion powder, go ahead and put that in there as well. And we're just gonna sprinkle some Italian seasoning in there too. Now, once you have all of your seasonings in there, just go ahead and stir to combine it into the heart of palm. All right, so now that we put all of our seasoning into the bowl, what you're gonna wanna do is grab about 8 saltines, and we're gonna just break this up so that it absorbs some of the moisture in the crab mix. And I love saying crab mix, vegan crab mix, I guess. And what it's gonna do is help the patties to bind together. So I'm gonna break these up in another little bowl. And you can just use your hands and get them as fine as possible, but it doesn't matter if it has like some big chunks in there because it's all gonna get absorbed anyway. And then once you break those up, just go ahead and toss it straight into the mixture and then stir that all together. Okay, after you have everything combined, the next step, you're gonna start forming the patties, but go ahead and just wash your hands because we're gonna be using our hands to form them. So I'm gonna go do that and come right back. Okay, so I am back. What I am about to do is just divide the mix in about, you're gonna wanna just divide it down the middle and then once again, just so you can figure out portion sizes a little bit. This should do for about 6 to 8 patties depending on how big you make it. But what I like to do is just take the spoon and use that as your marker for how big they should be, and then make it into a little ball, and you have a little crab cake. And I already have a plate here with some saran wrap on there. So you're gonna want to just place those onto the plate, and then just repeat. Do that for the rest of the mix. And what's good about this is since it's not battered yet or anything, you can play around with it, make it as big or as small as you want your patties to be. Okay, so there we have it. These are what our patties are gonna look like. I was able to get 8 out of these, which is really great. And what I'm gonna do now is pop these in the freezer. You're gonna want these to freeze for a minimum of 20 minutes. I typically leave it in there for at least 45 just so that they form. And then what we're gonna do when we come back is batter them in flour and take it over to the frying pan. So while our crab cakes are in the freezer getting all frozen and forming together, what I'm gonna do now is go over and make our vegan tartar sauce. So I am just using regular vegan vegan, Hellmann's Vegan Mayonnaise, and you can use whatever brand that you want. I just have this on hand, and I like this one the best. So you're just gonna take a few scoops of mayo, add that into a bowl, and then you're gonna just take some sweet relish and add that into your mayo. And we're gonna take the other half of that lemon, just squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in there. Try not to get the seeds in, especially with these. It's a little difficult to prevent that. So squeeze in just a little bit of that lemon juice. And what I'm also gonna do is chop up some fresh dill. And if you have dried dill also that comes in just a regular season, you can add that in there too. So I'm gonna get that dill, throw it in there. And lastly, I like to add just a little bit of black pepper. You can use your cayenne pepper that you use for the crab cakes, but it will change the color of the mayo, so that's why I just use regular black pepper. Add that in there, and then just stir everything together. Once that's all done, just get a bowl that you're gonna be serving it in, and scoop everything into that bowl. Okie doke, and then we're just gonna pop this in the fridge and save this for later to put with our crab cakes. Yeah. Alright, so now that I have the crab cakes out of the freezer, it's been in there for a while, so I'm just going to now douse them in flour so that we can start frying. Get rid of all that stuff. So I'm using Spelt organic flour. You can use any flour that you have on hand. And what I'm gonna do first is sprinkle some flour on top, just so I'd be able to pick them up. And then it's okay if you make a mess, I'm making a mess, just be sure to clean it up later. And then I'm also gonna put some flour in another plate so that we can just roll them around in there. What you're gonna wanna be sure to do is make sure that your crab cakes are completely covered in flour. Now this is gonna make it easier to fry. When it's not covered in flour, what's gonna happen is they'll start to break apart, and you do not want that. And that's one of the reasons actually that I chose to make it this recipe opposed to using, let's say, like chickpeas, garbanzo beans, something like that, because I've tried those recipes and what ends up happening is I don't know if it's too thick or it just doesn't mesh as well, but when you're frying it, it starts to break apart. But don't worry, when I do this recipe, it always stays together and they turn out almost perfectly every time, which is a blessing, you know? All right, so just be sure to cover everything with flour, make sure they're well coated, and just put them to the side while you finish the rest of them. To get started with the frying, what we're going to do is just take any oil that you have on hand and bring it to really, really high heat. You want to make sure that it's high because you don't want your crab cakes to break apart, which can sometimes happen if the oil isn't hot enough. So be sure to get it nice and hot. Here I am adding the crab cakes into the pan and just making sure they have enough room that they're not going to bump into each other and stick to each other. What I also like to do is just take some of that hot oil and spoon it on tops of the crab cakes, the side that you did not flip as yet. And what it's going to do is when you go to flip it, it's not going to get all over the pan. It's not going to stick to anything. You're just going to have a nice smooth flip and they're going to stay intact. And then you're just going to go ahead and fry them until they're golden brown. So about 5 to 8 minutes on each side, but definitely keep an eye on them because you don't want them to burn. And then go ahead, give them that nice flip. As I said, they're not going to stick to the pan. They're not going to stick to each other. You're going to have a really, really solid crab cake. Awesome. So after you just repeat the process on both sides, you can go ahead, remove them. I just get 2 stacks of paper towel, put that on a plate, and then get the crab cakes off just so that the oil will drain off of the crab cakes. All right, so we are all done with the crab cakes. Now you get to eat and enjoy. Okay, so we're completely done with the crab cakes. The only thing left to do now is to taste them. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive right in. Those are so good. Okay, so these are absolutely delicious. Now, I typically have mine with like some buckwheat noodles or rice and spinach, other stuff, but you can have these as a standalone by itself or as appetizers. Well, they're super good. They have like a nice lemony taste to it. You don't really taste too much of the mayonnaise because everything just mixes in together. And if you do it correctly, you're gonna have just a nice little crunch on the outside too. And of course, that tartar sauce that we made goes perfectly with it. So I'm gonna go back and finish enjoying these, but definitely let me know if you guys try this. Feel free to tag me, or if you have any other recipes you want me to try out. But yeah, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in more uploads. Bye-bye.